You all amaze me. We did it. I'd be screaming and shouting if my daughter wasn't asleep in the other room. I can't believe that we made it 2,000 subscribers with like a week to go before the deadline. So thank you to obviously Alex Kosha and Super Tech God, two Marvel Snap creators who gave me really big shout outs and encouraged people to subscribe. Like it meant a lot to see that, and then to everyone who responded to them and came and subscribed and got me over the goal 2,000 subscribers. Thank you for being here, and I genuinely hope you stay and that you enjoy the videos. There's a lot of really exciting things to come. If you are interested in, if you subscribed to see my wife, who's never played Marvel Snap before, rate cards and play them against me, that will be happening next week. We're very excited for it. But right now, you're here for this video to talk about Firehair. So let's talk about that. But I wanted to start with my sincere thank you because last night was a really exciting night to achieve that goal. So I appreciate that everyone who helped make that a reality. But let's talk about Firehair, give you some deck ideas, and tell you within like the last 30-ish hours, I think is what you got to pick up Firehair if she's worth your resources before she's gone, before we get Khonshu. So starting with the data that we have from Untapped, she's currently sitting at a popularity rate of 23.9. Sadly, though, a negative win rate of 48%. And a negative cube rate of 0.04%, which is really interesting. So like compare that as an example to Starbrand, right? Just going off most recent cards, and because that's the data I have here in my slide before I replace it each week, Starbrand's popularity was dramatically less. He only had an 8.3 popularity rate. However, you'd be cube and win rate wise better off to pick up Starbrand. He had a 52% win rate and a 0.11 cube rate. So his success rate was much better than Firehand's. I think that's for a few reasons that I'll talk about. I also think that's because so many people have been experimenting with Firehand. Like as the popularity goes up, the win rate generally goes down. But also with a card that's unique, like, did I say Firebrand? That's unique like Firehair. There's been a little bit of experimenting, a little bit of cooking. So I can see why the win rate is low as people are trying to figure out how to win with this card, which is really exciting. I think the most exciting thing for me about this week was seeing unique decks, people trying unique things, people trying new things that we haven't really seen, and that's been the coolest thing that Firehair has brought about for me. So my rating, yes, I did not end up purchasing my keys with Firehair. If you watch my video, I spent 8 keys to get the variant, which it's a beautiful variant, and I don't regret that, but I mean, we're looking at the data and that doesn't, justify the purchase very much. However, the reason that I did that is because I got the base card, started to play a few games, and I thought, you know what, I really, really like this card. This is a card that I like, this unique type of deck building. I also really, really like the variant. Let's just go for it. I also had a 4 key to get Fire, so I thought, 1 or 2 more isn't bad. And then I did 1 or 2 more, and I got 2 really dumb variants, and then I was in too far to give up. So, may as well just burn 2 more to make sure I get it. So after all that, after wasting 8 keys, my star rating is much lower than I would have hoped. But keys aside, is also much lower than I thought. My star rating before this season was a 5-star. I think most people were thinking Firehair to be a 5-star. But my current rating is to give it 3 stars. Or 3 rocks, as the theme of this season was supposed to be, that I keep forgetting to switch this to. And the reason for that is the same reason that I gave Eson 3 stars. However, I would put Eson at like the lower end of 3 stars and Firehair at the top end of 3 stars, almost into 4. And the reason for that is that there are 2 requirements. So with Eson, you had to be able to play Eson and have cards in hand that were worth having Eson pulled down. And so most decks wanted to ramp him out early and wanted to have generated cards. And so you had to meet those 2 requirements. And if you didn't meet those 2 requirements in a good way, the card didn't really generate as much value besides just being a 6/10 Ashong target, especially if you ramp it out early. Firehair is the same way. In order to benefit from Firehair, you've got to have Firehair down. You've got to have cards that you on reveals that you want to destroy, and then you need to destroy them in a way that's meaningful. Misery being an obvious combo with that, which we'll see when we get into the decks. So why is this a lower rating? Well, it's the same reason that Moonstone is a dramatically better card than Mystique in some circumstances. I understand that Mystique is like a game-winning card, and I love Mystique. I'm not speaking down about that. But as an example, in the Patriot deck that I made, the high voltage deck, the reason that Moonstone is so good in that deck and much better than Mystique is because, particularly in that game mode, Moonstone you can play beforehand. Like if you want to double your Patriot, you can play Moonstone on turn 1 in high voltage and Patriot on turn 3, and you still get the effect. Or with Mystique, you have to play that 1 after Patriot and 2 directly after Patriot. You couldn't play Patriot on 1 and Mystique on 3. You'd have to, Patriot and then Mystique on 3 as an example. Again, this is in high voltage we're talking. So the play order of things really matters, and being able to meet those requirements matters with cards. And the tighter that those requirements get with cards, the harder it is to benefit from them. And I felt in my experimenting with Firehair, I felt that way, that the card draw could really mess you up. If you didn't have the right nut draw, like if you got the nut draw with Firehair, you were just guaranteed to win. If you got your hoods into Firehair into Killmonger, on that was your curve 1, 2, 3. You've got. Or even better if you went, hood into Firehair into, I'm trying to think of like a 3 cost you'd want to repeat. I can't think of something right now. And then into Misery, like you now have 3 demons, which is crazy and incredible value. So those nut draws are insane, but the situations where that isn't happening and you don't have, like you draw Misery and you don't have Firehair down, or let's say you don't have Misery, or you have a deck that has Venom or Carnage, you draw one of those and you don't have Firehair, or you have Firehair and you never draw your cards to destroy, or you draw your cards to destroy, but your cards that are on reveals, you generate way late. And I know that there's other options besides like the hood. That's just the one that everyone thinks of for obvious reasons. And so in my playstyling with Firehair, I found that it was pretty inconsistent, and that oftentimes the deck felt really constrained trying to make the interactions with Firehair happen more frequently. That maybe the deck actually doesn't really want Carnage, but I'm including Carnage in the deck just in case I don't draw Venom or Misery, who I really want to play, type of thing. And so it felt much weaker than I would want the card to be. And I'm also not like, there's a part of me that's really surprised, and there's also a part of me that's not. Like, this card was released the way it was. Everyone was saying, oh, this card needs to be nerfed, it's too strong. Well, now we can see why it was a nerf and it was released the way it was, is that the requirements to get the payoff of Firehair also don't always help you win. And sometimes you're so constrained by trying to get the value of Firehair that you don't play a good winning line, is my experience. The potential for 4 stars, and the reason that I say that is because we have 2 cards coming out that are really, really interesting. I think it's Boy Omega or Kid Omega, something like that, and Elixir. I can't remember which one does which, but they're both activates, and one of them is the next card that you play this turn is destroyed, and the other one is after your next card is destroyed this turn, revive it here or gain its power here or something like that, right? But 2 activate destroy cards, which is really interesting. So destroy is going to get 2 other enablers, but also like almost does the Moonstone effect. And this is why I brought up the Mystique example. Those cards allow you to do the Moonstone effect that you previously only had Mystique for, where you had to have Firehair down, you had to have your hood down, and then you had to play your Carnage or your Misery or something. Like, you had to have that order. Now, I think it's Elixir who destroys the card. Or maybe it's Boy Omega. Let's say it's Boy Omega who destroys the card, right? So his abilities activate. The next card you play this turn is destroyed. So you get your Boy Omega down. Then you get Firehair. Then whatever on-reveal you want, you can on-reveal and use the activate ability to destroy. So it gives you the options to like change the order of cards that have to be played. The Moonstone effect to Mystique is in essence, the example that I'm trying to explain here. And so I think it's going to take that consistency with Firehair up a little bit. Also, I hope people keep cooking with Firehair. I think there's a lot of other interesting options, like particularly in high voltage. I'm seeing things like the Black Panther Zola combo is everywhere in high voltage. Okay, well, that's super interesting if you have Firehair down, because now Firehair also doubles herself and goes to 2/6, which, obviously that's fantastic, in addition to the benefit you're getting from 2 Black Panthers. So I think that there's a lot of unique things that you're going to be able to do with Firehair that we haven't figured out yet, and it's only going to get better. However, I don't think it's going to be as busted as everyone was worried it would be. I think the restrictions keep it in check. So let's talk about decks. No surprise, and quite sadly, the first deck and this is sorting by win rate as well. So not just like the most played. The most popular was Mill, but also the highest win rate is also Mill, which is really sad. If you don't have some of these cards, which you're missing, Baron Zemo is a really popular one. Fenris Wolf is a popular one. Yondu. These are the cards we're all just used to in Mill. So this is Mill. It's say what it is. It's not an exciting deck to play against, and so I hope that it never becomes super prevalent. But it is winning, and I think that like Mill always kind of struggled to get the win rate and cube rate, and this still isn't phenomenal, but Firehair definitely takes it up a lot. So Mill was like the top 3 or 4 decks, but moving on to the one after that I thought was particularly interesting is a Isan Victoria hand deck. Like, this is my type of deck. So I just literally copy and pasted it and started to play it. And your mileage may dramatically vary than this 54% win rate because I had a negative win rate with it. It didn't jive well for me. I think there's something here, and I have my own deck that I've been trying. It's like a version of this. It takes this idea, but pretty cool that you've got Firehair in a Victoria hand deck. I think that makes a lot of sense. Obviously, with the hood interaction and other on reveals, like in high voltage, I've been playing a Victoria hand Isan Firehair deck, which is just a lot of fun because you can destroy your hoods, you can destroy your Maria Hills, your Agent 13s with your Carnage and get a lot of value from them. So that's this deck, which is not the strongest, both the cube rate and win rate reveals that, but also my playing of it. It's not the strongest, but quite cool. And then, super exciting, especially for Beta Ray Bill Lover, but for everyone, the hammers, the Thor, Hammer Bros are now meta relevant, so to speak. Again, not the highest win rate, but I think this is kind of the first time in a while that we've had a positive win rate for a Hammer Bros deck, and I think it's particularly cool. This is the one that I saw from Jeff Hoogland. I know other people shared it, but that's where I saw it first, so I'm going to credit him. And it's a really cool deck, lots of fun to play, and I love that the Hammer Bros are meta relevant again. I hope that they continue to be because they are really, really unique cards, and I don't want to be in a meta where this deck is significantly stronger than this deck. Like, this one is an interesting one to play against, and it's really, really fun. It also has cool cards like Quake and Miss Marvel. Like, cool deck. I loved playing this one, as you saw in the video as well that I released on it. The next deck is a Thanos Destroy deck. I actually think that this is the Regis one. Yeah, it is. It has Angel and Makari. Like, super cool to see a Thanos Destroy deck. Really, really smart to include cards like Angel and Makari because with Firehair and Killmonger, you are going to draw a lot of cards. And so, keeping your hand smaller with Angel and Makari is pretty cool. So, really, really fun deck, and cool to see Thanos Destroy kind of part of the meta. I've been playing against this deck a lot. I've seen a lot of people playing it. Very, very cool. And then we move on to 2 Darkhawk decks that I want to include. They were much lower on the win rate and much lower on the cube rate, as you can see in the specs here. But again, it's cool to see Darkhawk part of the meta again. And he's kind of been creeping his way back in, but it's just cool to see that he truly is creeping his way back in a more consistent way. And I want to highlight those decks the same way that it's exciting to see that the Hammer Bros are part of the meta. It's exciting to see that Darkhawk, even after all his nerfs, is a part of the meta. So this one's kind of like a Millhawk approach. Like, you have the Death, you have Killmonger, that type of thing. It's interesting. I don't think you're getting Death too cheap here. Like, if you destroy your 1, 2, 3 cards, Death is now 5 cost, so maybe you also destroy like your Iron Patriot. So I don't think you're getting Death down to 0 the way you might in a typical mill vet, unless you go you get a fantastic lane with Lady Deathstrike on turn 5. We'll see, but that's this deck. And then we just have another version that's a more straightforward Darkhawk deck, right? You have the Zabu into Rock Slide and Misery and Korg and Anti-Venom. Oh, excuse me, it's very early. Which I think is one of my favorite play lines that I have been played against and also play that I thought was cool, is that you Cassandra Nova and then you eat Cassandra Nova with Venom so that you can keep the value, right? Because you don't want to Misery Cassandra Nova. Obviously, that destroys their deck if it says, but you're losing, almost, let's say, 10 power from Cassandra Nova by getting that second on reveal with Misery. Like, you're just wiping that off the board, so you're losing power. Where with Venom, you could retain that power, and Firehair also procs again. I mean, you could go the Misery approach and just Cassandra Nova their deck 3 times, and you might win that way because their cards just have no power now. But I like the Venom line, and I thought it was pretty cool. So, really, really fun deck, and cool to see that Darkhawk is a part of the meta. So then we have my 2 decks that I played. Neither one of them are particularly great, but I think that they're in the line of like the Cook and a little bit more of experimenting with Firehawk. And I think there's something there. I just haven't quite figured it out, and I want to share it. Hopefully someone smarter than me can figure it out. And so the first one is the Abs Are Made in the Jungle is the name of the deck, kind of a take on like a Surfer Abs deck, a Surfer Absman deck, but instead of Absman, it's Venom and Carnage and Firehair, which was really, really fun. Gwenpool is amazing. I think that it just makes more sense to have Galacta because they're like, if you're particularly with no Sarah here, you're not wanting to eat the Gwenpool to get a second Firehair. Like, unless you've got some energy cheat, it's not, or they're discounted with Fastos or something, like it's not always worthwhile playing Gwenpool on 4 and then eating it with Venom on 5. Those cards that are hit by Gwenpool, you're not going to be able to play all of them because they're 3 cost. So it didn't make a lot of sense. So I think Galacta might make sense because then you can more consistently hit your broods, which is what you really want. So if you were to go with this deck, I would try that. But overall, it was a lot of fun. I can't quite figure this out. However, I loved, one of my favorite interactions is Brood getting hit by Carnage or Venom, right? Carnage, you just get the exact same value because you get 2 power for each Brood that you destroyed, so that's fine. The reason that you want to play Carnage is if they're on a location that increases their power, or they've been hit by Forge, or maybe Gwenpool or something. But then the cool thing is that Firehair copies the Brood on reveal, which is always cool. I think there's a better version of this that can benefit from that a little bit more, but I enjoyed this deck. It shows that I have a negative cube rate. I only played 1 game. I played a lot with it on my phone, and so there's no data here for that. It's still probably a negative win rate. Like, it wasn't very, very consistent. However, there's something here that I think might work. So give it a try if you want. The next that I have is just one that I was cooking up for high voltage, which was a lot of fun. And I also had a mission where I had to play 5 cost cards. So I just include these cards. And I accidentally clicked into a regular game. And I was going to retreat, but I thought, you know what? Let's wait it out. Let's see what happens. And then I won, like, it was only 1 cube, but like I just was dumping so much power onto the board that the opponent ended up retreating because I just had so much. And so I wanted to include that. Obviously, 1 game where my opponent retreated isn't the best sample size. In fact, it's a horrible sample size, but maybe there's something here that I should have kept trying. So you can give it a try on ladder if you want. It's also just a lot of fun in high voltage. Take out Vision, though. He was just there for the 5. He was just there for the 5 cost mission. Anyway, that is Firehair. So to answer the question of the video, is she worth your resources? This is kind of sad for me to say as someone who spent 8 keys, but no, probably not right now. I don't think so. And it's interesting because, okay, so if you want to play Firehair in the future, is it better to spend your keys now instead of having to wait for her to come to your shop and spend tokens on later? Well, yeah, probably. So if you really are thinking of this type of deck and the type of deck she's in, you really want to play, she's going to be better in the future probably. So maybe get her now if you want her, but I can also see that she just becomes a really, really niche card and doesn't become super prominent and prevalent in all the decks that we thought she was going to be. Obviously, she'll always have a place in Mill, but there's just, the restrictions are quite tight, and it keeps the deck and its potential in check. It also really constrains what type of deck building you can do. So it is a card, believe it or not, that I think doesn't just put out this insane power that's a must buy for everybody. So I could see if you skip this week to save your resources. However, I will say this is a phenomenal week to use your resources with cards like Cassandra Nova and Nico Monaro. 2 of the best cards in the game, particularly Nico Monaro might be the best card in the game, according to my opinion. So those are definitely cards worth getting and spending your keys on, no matter what. Whether it was Firehair or even Starbrand this week, definitely worth spending your keys. So that's my opinion on Firehair. Much lower than I wanted it to be. It's a super exciting card and a really interesting card to play. It also has a beautiful variant that I spent 8 keys on, so I want it to be good. So I keep cooking with it, but I don't think we're quite there yet outside of the mill shell that it's done particularly well in. But hey, the Hammer Bros are back because of Firehair, so that is reason alone to celebrate. So also reason to celebrate is all the people who subscribed. I don't have to ask again for people to subscribe for me to reach my goal. Like I almost just said it right now, but we already got there. So thank you. I just thank you. It truly means the world to me. So thank you for being the type of people who helped me achieve my goal. Exciting things to come. Of course, more videos coming, but also my wife is going to rate Marvel Snap cards and play some games against me, which is going to be fun. So stay subscribed for that. And thanks for watching. It really means a lot. I appreciate it.